Did Craig Smith just save his job by beating Kansas? We're talking about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first view and listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by KSL Sports' Alex Napoles. And Alex, talking about Craig Smith has been a conversation that normally gets dominated by, this is his last year. Utah basketball's not in a good place. And I think that was the biggest thought that most people had going into the season. But anytime you beat a top 20 team, and especially anytime you beat a team like Kansas, I think it sparks a conversation. And this conversation is, hey, anytime you beat a program like that, is that enough to save your job when you're on the hot seat? I will say I think it could be not an isolated thing. Well, we'll see how the rest of the season ends. But I do think this win has the potential to be one of the reasons Craig Smith could keep his job after this year. How do you view the situation?
I would probably agree with you, right? Because this is, even though it's kind of a down year for Kansas, it's still a top 25 win. It's still a win where you bring in one of the true blue bloods, one of the most recognizable brands in college basketball into your home, and you're able to knock them off in a big upset win. I think that's a big win. That's a huge win that Utah can potentially ride that momentum on and finish the season strong. And I think it's going to come down to that, whether we have that conversation of, is Craig Smith gone? Is Craig Smith going to stay? Will they retain him? The future of Craig Smith, I think, depends a lot on how the Utes are able to finish this season. This 74 to 67 win over the number 17 in the country, it's big, it's huge, and it has the potential to really help Craig Smith. But it also comes down to finishing strong, right? If Utah goes on and loses the remainder of their schedule, which I'm not saying they will, or I don't think that they will, but if it does happen, right, they lose out the rest of their schedule and they don't have a strong showing in the Big 12 tournament, then we're having a different conversation, JT. But the fact that this is a Utah team who, was in the preseason was predicted to be at the bottom, to be the worst team in the Big 12 standings, right? But you're actually sitting at 6-8. That's something to build on, and I think, like I said, with a strong finish, we're probably having a different conversation about whether Craig Smith stays or goes.
If Utah can win 5 of their last 6 games and make some noise in the Big 12 tournaments in a year that was supposed to be like where I thought they'd finish closer to 16, as that was what everyone predicted, like you said, the preseason poll. If Utah can finish inside the top 10 or just around there, if they finish in the top 12, win a couple games in the tournament, yeah, they'll probably miss the NCAA tournament. But I do think there's a lot of reason and momentum to think then, okay, maybe we should keep Craig Smith. I look at it like this. I think Craig Smith is a good basketball coach. I think he has made some recruiting mistakes for sure. Not all of his picks have panned out, guys he's brought in, but he often puts his team in position to win. I don't really feel like Utah gets out coached a lot. Also said this before, Alex. I don't think Utah basketball is the easiest place to win right now. You could look at Larry Krystkowiak not working out. You could now look at Craig Smith. It hasn't gone to plan perfectly, and that's 2 coaches. So is that 2 coaches not doing enough? Yeah, part of the reason is that. But I also think it's a basketball problem. Utah's lost out on recruits before. They've gotten outbid in NIL. It's not always the most supported sport, too, just in the atmosphere and with things of that nature, too. So we know the football team gets all the love, and there's nothing wrong with that. But basketball doesn't even really get a fraction of what football gets too. So I do think there are a lot of reasons that make this job a difficult one. So I look at this situation and go, hey, if this is a Utah team that goes on a run to end the year and Craig Smith is looking like he can build something, why would you move on from that just to restart?
100% agree. And I think ultimately, and this goes across any sport, not just the sport of basketball, but winning solves a lot of problems. Winning solves a lot of issues. And I think that if like I said, unless Utah loses out the rest of their schedule, then it's a different conversation. But if Utah can finish strong, collect some good wins, collect some maybe a couple wins in the tournament and make some noise in the Big 12 tournament, winning solves your problem. And I think in order for Utah basketball to not have this conversation of, oh, they're going to be put on the back burner, or, oh, people don't care as much about Utah basketball, is you got to start winning. You have to start winning meaningful basketball games, right? Not just beating up on Colorado or Oklahoma State, who, to be frank, aren't good teams in the Big 12. But this win against number 17, it's a great start. It's a phenomenal start to start winning, quote unquote, more meaningful basketball games, and to start building some more consistency. You start winning games, you start attracting better recruits. Then it's a whole different story for Craig Smith. But I still think that this is a program that has a long way to go.
I agree, and I think that Craig Smith still could be maybe the guy that gets it back. I'm not trying to overreact to one win. I'm just saying I think Craig Smith's a good basketball coach, and I think those are harder to find than people think. He was very successful at Utah State. He's had some struggles at Utah. Like I said, I think some of that is on some of the players he's chosen to bring in. There's been some hits and some misses, but also it's not like this year and last year's success and failures. It's not an apples to apples comparison. Last year, for this team to not make the tournament with Brandon Carlson, Devontae Smith, some of these things that happened, like it was a massive disappointment. But it was also because he couldn't do it in the Pac-12. To be doing what Utah is doing this year in a conference as tough and as daunting as the Big 12, they deserve some love and some credit for that. Like, that's also, if you start to look through Craig Smith's resume, right? He's done well against BYU. He's gotten a couple wins against the Cougars in the past. Going to have an opportunity to get one in Provo. That's a huge game. It's probably the biggest game he has left on his regular season schedule. I think the first round of the Big 12 tournament is a must-win game for Craig Smith. If you lose that game, because you're not going to play one of the top teams based on how the top teams usually get the bye, or they do get the bye. So if you play some of those teams and you middle of the pack team and you don't look like you belong with them, that's where it could get problematic. But this is a guy who helped Utah upset a top 5 Arizona a couple years ago. Mentioned doing well against BYU, beat that BYU team recently too, and now just knocked off a Kansas team too. The wins are there. I still feel like when you watch Craig Smith out there, like, hey, he's a good coach. They make good adjustments in game, get some most out of most of his guys, even if he's made some recruiting mistakes. I still think he's got a really good shot to be this. I still think he's got a shot. I won't say really good. I still think he has a shot to be this team's head coach. And I think a lot of people wrote him off, but a win against a top 20 team has that much momentum to kickstart what could be enough dominoes falling that lead to Craig Smith returning next year.
Couldn't agree more, JT. Couldn't agree more. And we've seen the success of Craig Smith in the past. Maybe hasn't 100% translated yet to Utah basketball, but like I said, with a little bit more consistency, that's a conversation that can quickly change for Craig Smith.
Mm-hmm. And regardless of how you feel about Craig Smith, can we all just be fired up and happy? And I think pretty much everyone I've seen is, right? Like, Utah just beat Kansas. That's awesome. To beat one of the blue bloods in the sport is fantastic. Shout out to Gabe Madsen becoming the all-time leader in most made threes by a Utah player for his career. That was incredible to see. I mean, to light it up 5-13 from downtown, 24 points to lead Utah there. I was impressed with Keanu Dawes. I know he didn't score well. I mean, only 2 points, but to get 10 rebounds, like, he was getting after it too. Jake Wallen, a double-double out there as well. Ezra Asar, we knew he was going to show up in this game too. This team continues to fight. They continue to make plays. They really limited Hunter Dickinson. I mean, only 12 points on 12 shots too. This was just a fun game to watch, and it was awesome. Just like I said, Alex, like, just appreciate, hey, one of our teams beat one of the best programs in college basketball. That just brings a smile to my face.
Absolutely. Anytime any local team is able to pull off an upset like this, it's always fun to watch. And I think it makes it a little bit more fun in the case that this is, personally, I think this is one of the best, if not the best, performance we've seen from this Utah basketball team all season long. And so, again, it's just, how do you build off of that? How do you carry that momentum into Kansas State this next week on Tuesday? And then how do you continue to build off and pick up those wins?
No, you're right. It is Kansas State. They got them coming up. It's actually going to be on Monday, the 17th. So you got Kansas State first, then take on UCF. Those are very winnable games. Kansas State's tough, but you get them at home. Like, that's where we want this team to trend that direction. Win the tough game. UCF, beat them. Win on the road. So a long road trip, but still got to win that. At top 15 Arizona, that's going to be tough. Just compete. Don't have a Houston showing. Have something much more akin to what you did against Kansas, or even against, at one point when Utah played, I think at one point when they played Baylor early on in the season, Utah did lose to them in a close game, like not the 76-61. I guess that one wasn't as close. There were parts of it I thought Utah was in it, but anyway. Then after that, the Arizona State, West Virginia, BYU, like, I said win 5 out of those 6 games, win some games in the tournament. I think you're building momentum, heading in a positive direction. Let us know below how you guys think Utah's going to end the regular season. If you think Craig Smith and this team are going to be able to turn it around. And one thing Utah is hoping to do is they're hoping to build themselves into a basketball program that can consistently generate talent that goes on to play at the next level. That's what the Utah football team's been able to do. 3 Utah football players got their combine invite last week. I want to talk about those individuals and what they'll have a chance to do in Indy in one moment. But first, this episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel has you covered. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on that action than with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to be on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or hoping that they're going to just hold on late and hit the clutch 3 to win it, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Head over to FanDuel today. Alex Napoles back with me here. And Alex, shifting over from the hardwood to talking about what Utah football has been able to do, and that's consistently be a program that helps players reach the NFL. And this year, you see 3 guys get invited to the NFL Combine. So Brant Kuithe, Karene Reed, and Junior Tafuna all going to be in attendance. I'm really excited. I felt really good about Reed getting his invite. Once Tafuna had a good Senior Bowl week, I thought he would be there. And Kuithe is a guy I feel like he deserved to be there, but I didn't know because of the injury. So I'm really excited to see him get in there. I think there are other guys that could have gotten this invite. A Connor O'Toole, a Van Fillinger, a Zemiah Vaughn are all guys I feel like could have. And I would love to see Mekhi Bernard. But it is an exclusive field. I feel like the 3 they chose make a lot of sense, Alex.
I would absolutely agree with you. These three make the most sense considering the performances that we saw from Karene Reed and Junior Tafuna at the Senior Bowl. I thought those 2 absolutely balled out, and it was nice to see national media, national covers of the sport kind of focus in on both Karene Reed and Tafuna as being like, hey, these guys are actually pretty good and really good, and seeing them perform well at the Senior Bowl. I think for Brant Kuithe, man, this is as important as a combine as it gets. This is, the injuries are always going to be a question, right? But if he can go in and have a really, really solid showing at the combine, I think he's got a pretty good shot at potentially getting drafted in the late rounds, right? Brant Kuithe obviously didn't finish the season the way probably a lot of people wanted him to finish it, considering he got injured. Yeah. And so I think for a guy like Brant Kuithe, it is 1,000 times more important. Not to say it's not important for Karene Reed and Junior Tafuna, but I do think that it is going to be so important for Brant Kuithe to go out and have a good showing at the combine in order for him to be able to improve that draft stock, because he didn't have the chance to go to a Senior Bowl and improve that draft stock like a Karene Reed or a Junior Tafuna did.
No, he didn't. I totally agree. This is really big. He gets the senior, you get this pro day, but that's not always, you put more stock in the combine normally. So I am excited to see what Brant Kuithe can do, because he's the fascinating one to me. I think Brant Kuithe, of the players in this draft, and I do think Karene Reed will go higher. I think Junior Tafuna will go higher. There's even a player or 2 who didn't get invited to the combine that I could see going higher because of the medical history. Kuithe, if he could stay healthy, he has a chance to be a star. And someone might say, wow, if he just doesn't produce that much, I feel like that's kind of a crazy take. Well, back in 2021, he had 600 yards with an offense that was not exactly known for airing it out like crazy. What did he do back in 2019, too, was also really good then, too. Over 600 yards there, too. And I felt like this season at camp play, he would have had a great chance to 1,000. He was so good before his injury in 22 as well. In those 3 games, already 204 yards. So he's well on his way to surpassing the 600 that he had set to. I feel like Kuithe is a guy. He's a really strong route runner. He's a really good athlete. He's got good hands. He's a veteran. He's experienced. The medical will drop him. If I'm an NFL team, Alex, why would I not use a 6th or 7th round pick on Brant Keithie's upside and talent when so many of the 6th and 7th rounders don't pan out anyways. To me, Keithie absolutely should get drafted. His combine performance, I agree, would go a very long way in helping him to do so. Another guy who Utah is hoping will have a good combine performance, so I'm going to get drafted, is Karenni Reed. Right now, I feel like would be my favorite to be the first player of this bunch drafted. Reed has just been so consistent and steady for Utah. Back when he was helping out with Devin Lloyd and Nephi Sewell was the other linebacker with him too. The first Pac-12 championship team. He's a starter the next year, him and Lander Barton. And then injuries kind of derailed these last couple of years, right? But you look overall, this is a guy who's really stout in coverage. He's always been really consistent. You look back in 23, right? He ranked second on the team with 67 tackles. He had 72 tackles when he was fully healthy in that 22 season. He can do a little bit of everything. He sees the field really well, shoots through gaps, strong tackler, good leader. And let's talk about those hands to pick off passes too. I'm never going to forget the UCLA interception that he had. So to me, Reed's the favorite to be the first guy drafted. I think he'll have a good combine showing. I don't know if he'll set the world on fire, but I expect him to be drafted in the top 5 rounds right now.
I would, yes, I think I would absolutely agree with that. And again, going back to the Senior Bowl and going back to I guess the leadership that Karenni Reed shows. Right, this is the NFL. I feel like the linebacker position is always evolving, right? And it's difficult to make a name for yourself and really stick out as a linebacker in the NFL. But I feel like Karenni Reed has the tools to do so, and so whoever ends up drafting Karenni Reed is going to be, no matter where he goes, is going to be very surprised. I feel like they're going to be very surprised to see what he brings to the table, because he's a very solid player and a really good guy.
Yeah. Then this next guy I want to talk about, Alex, Junior Tafuna. I don't know what's more difficult to stop, Junior Tafuna or that single strand of hair of yours that continues to fall down.
I know. Probably Tafuna.
Probably Tafuna, just narrowly. I've seen cover your face a couple times now, so it made me laugh. But for those of you listening on video, I hope that gives a little insight to what we were talking about. But Junior Tafuna is a guy. He's just, you talked about the lead. We mentioned leadership with Reed. I mean, it's the same thing with Tafuna. Those were the two captains this Utah team had, 6'3", 305 pounds. I think Utah so often asked him to take on double teams. And he was often double teamed too. Was so happy he got to show his one-on-one abilities that he had. That was the guy who got 4.5 sacks his rookie year with Utah, was the Pac-12 freshman of the year, or defensive freshman of the year. He's a game wrecker. I really like this guy. He's a great culture presence. He's physical. I think he can be a rotation defensive tackle day one for a team in the NFL. He's another guy, once again, I was to say, like, hey, I think Reed will be the first player drafted for Utah in this draft. I'd probably go him second. I think his talent, his intangibles, the quickness he has off the snap, too, that ability to take on guys, he can do a little bit of everything. I really like Junior Tafuna. I think he's got a chance to test okay. I don't think he's going to be a great defensive tackle when it comes to the athletics and the traits, but so often we see guys fall for those things versus you go back and look at his tape, look at the Senior Bowl, and especially him being around those coaches, Alex, I gotta believe he left an impression on some of them, and I do think he has a good chance to be the second Ute taken.
I would also agree with that sentiment, and I feel like in the case of Tafuna, the Senior Bowl was so important for him because I don't know how much scouts were looking at Utah and being like, oh, Utah doesn't have the best of records this past season. We're probably going to try to look somewhere else, and weren't aware of what Junior Tafuna brought to the table. And so for him to go out into the Senior Bowl and now potentially going to the Combine and having a good showing, I think that'll massively, massively help get Junior Tafuna's name out there for people to see and be like, again, just like Karenni Reed, see like, hey, this guy might actually bring a lot to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I feel that way too. So really excited for those three to have the opportunity. So there was obviously Utah's large class. So not everyone got selected that they're hoping to for the Combine. As I mentioned, I don't know if there were snubs necessarily. Van Fillinger, Zamiah Vaughn, Connor O'Toole, all guys I'd love to see get an opportunity. O'Toole would be a pick. I'd be like, I think he's going to surprise some people. And I actually do think O'Toole will get drafted. Maybe the medical will lead to him not getting drafted. But the intangibles that he has, Zamiah Vaughn is the guy I thought I would have torn it up at the Combine, so I wanted to see him get an invite. He came back for his senior year, did not close the year great, but still did a lot of good things on the season for Utah too. So those are some of the first guys that jump out to me when I'm thinking about, like, okay, which Utah guy didn't get a Combine invite that maybe at least has an argument to do so. Am I missing anyone? Or is anyone you're surprised just not to see on this list?
No, I feel like those ones are pretty straightforward. Probably when I saw the invites, I think the biggest surprises to me were, like you mentioned, Zamaya Vaughn and Van Fillinger. I thought both of them, again, despite Utah not having the greatest of year, I feel like they were still absolute leaders and absolute units on the defense for this Utah side. They still had a pretty good season. And so those two were probably the biggest surprises for me of guys who might not be getting the necessary look that they deserve.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Those guys will all get a chance at their pro day too. So hopefully they're able to do something with it there. It was cool to see a Money Parks get an opportunity at the Shrine Bowl. So a little something to sign, a little something to get going there too. But one guy I'm fascinated by, Alex, and I have to do an episode on him again. The whole Dorian Singer thing. If he doesn't get his extra year of eligibility, like when do we know that? Is he is he in this draft? Is he? I believe he is until he gets the extra year eligibility, but he's not on Utah's roster. So at the moment, I think he's in there. And if he's in here, he's a guy I do think has a chance to get drafted too. I think he was productive. I think he did a lot of good things. Just bad quarterback play prevented and held him back too. So Singer's another guy I'll be keeping my eye on to see how this whole saga plays out with him. Speaking of things I'm keeping my eye on, the Utah women's basketball team, they're on a roll right now. This is a team, Coach Peters is doing a great job with this squad. They have won 7 straight games. They finally get a nice matchup coming up with Oklahoma State, which I'm excited about to see what they can do against a ranked team, because they have beaten all these unranked teams. But what are you supposed to do when you play unranked teams? Beat them. That's what Utah was able to do. They went down, take on ASU this weekend, and blasted them 98-62. Love how they closed the game 22-13 in the fourth. Kennedy McQueen and Gianna Neepkins has been fantastic. She needs some representation on the all Big 12 teams at the end of the year. But I love the way this team is playing right now. As I mentioned, Alex, I just feel like they got good returning experience. Torrey as center was kind of the new piece they were able to add with Johnson, McQueen, Neepkins, Vieira, as well as some of those other depth pieces too. There's a Utah women's basketball program that is acclimated very nicely to the Big 12. I'm excited for them to get their chance in the Big 12 tournament. Big 12 has some good women's basketball programs, but I do think Utah is ready for the challenge. And I know they lost a couple of games early on, but now this team's kind of hitting their rhythm, getting healthy, finding their stride. I'm excited to see what they'll be able to do.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, man. The team is getting healthy, and I think the team is learning to play together under the new head coach, right? I mentioned this last time I was on here with you, but I've been incredibly impressed with how this women's basketball team has been able to stick together through losing your head coach. I can't imagine any world where that would be easy. And to see Neepkins step up, to see McQueen step up and play phenomenal basketball. I'm very excited to see what this team can do in that Big 12 tournament, because I think right now, with the way that they're rolling, with the way that they're playing, this is a team that can absolutely make noise in that Big 12 tournament, man. And if they can get anywhere to a semifinal or a final in their first year in the Big 12, I think that would be an absolute huge success for Utah. Their 3-point shooting is absolutely amazing. Anytime that Neepkins pulls up for a 3, I love it, because I know it's going to go in, right? She is absolutely amazing from beyond the arc. And then, as well as it's a deep team. They got good players coming off the bench too, to help rotate, to give rest to your starters, and to make sure and sometimes when in college basketball, you see when the bench comes in, the play drops a little bit, but I haven't really seen it that much from the depth here at Utah. I feel like the bench players too are coming in and doing a good job, and so you have good bench play, good 3-point shooting, good defense. I feel like that is a recipe for success, and Utah has followed that blueprint to a T, and it's working really well. 7 straight is no joke, and happy to see them continue their success in the Big 12.
Been enjoying it too. And 7 of the last 8 games, you mentioned Gianna Neepkins a little bit. She's led this team in scoring, so it's been fun to see what she can produce. Only 4 games to go, and Utah's the only team in the Big 12 in the top 5 that's not currently ranked. Well, I think that's wrong, but they're going to have a chance to prove they should be. They get Oklahoma State and West Virginia in 3 of their last 4 games. So a huge opportunity for this Utah women's basketball team to get in there, make some noise, and get ranked like they deserve to. I believe they're going to be an NCAA tournament team, but still lock in your positioning and make it to a point where you get some momentum built up going into the tournament, earn a higher seed. I'm excited to see what this team can do, propelled by Gianna Neepkins. Alex, always appreciate you stopping by, taking the time. Let everyone know where they can find more of your stuff at.
Absolutely. Hey, soccer season is right around the corner. It starts this upcoming week. So if you're a Utah fan who also happens to like soccer and all things Real Salt Lake, hit me up at Napoles Alex, at RSL Show. You can also find all the other local sports coverage on my page at Napoles Alex and, of course, at KSL Sports.
You're the man, Alex. Thanks again for stopping by.
Absolutely, JT. Thanks for the invite. Pleasure as always.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking the latest in Utah football and Utah athletics.